Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to my second Facebook Live session. I'm Jan Damery, and I'm running to be Mayor of Calgary. I'm thrilled that you've been able to join me, and this is just a great opportunity to get to know me, get to know what my candidacy is all about. We have been starting to drip a lot of policy and ideas that we just welcome input and questions, much like we started last week. Want these to be quite interactive. It is a strange medium, me kind of speaking into the void. As I've said to others, I have huge empathy for John Oliver and others that have to do these calls this way. But thrilled to be here with you tonight. And this is our plan actually throughout the campaign, that I will do these sessions weekly, and it's a great opportunity to check in and come online and ask your questions. So please put your questions in the chat. We will pick them up. We're going to run some polls as we go through this session. And why don't I start off by just talking about, here we are, another week, a short week, but how great to see the sunshine today. So enjoyed all of this. I mean, the rain is good for the garden. I've got a plant behind me, a bit of my ode to garden, and you'll see the little sign on the wall, a little ode to Padre. I'm not sure if he'll wander in back today. But just great to be outdoors. And I think with the new announcements from the province, I know there's both trepidation but excitement that if we can start to open things up. And so want to hear kind of how you're doing and thinking about all of that. So I've made a couple of announcements this week. One today, we hit a huge milestone fundraising. We've just been in market about 17 days and already $100,000 from almost 90 donors. And the game has changed for fundraising campaigns municipally. So thank you so much for all of you that have already given to the campaign. And I'm hoping you can hear me. Okay, so looks like I want to make sure that people can hear me. Can people hear me? Just want to check in with my people on the back end. I think I'm getting all of these messages. So I'm going to just keep going unless I hear otherwise. What else? We unveiled today our second pillar of the Jan's Jumpstart for Jobs. I'm really excited about this post-recovery economic recovery program. You'll remember last year we talked about restaurants as well as live performers. But overall, this $52.7 million investment to jumpstart industries and businesses and sectors, really important for those that are falling through the cracks. And this program is all about jumpstarting businesses that have really been suffering, entrepreneurs, sole proprietors, and just excited that we have the opportunity just to spell this out and give people a reason to hope, and also to create vibrancy in our communities and really create vibrancy in our main streets. So the second component of that 52.7 represents about an investment about 37.7 million. And it's split off into several buckets. I want to give you a sense of what those buckets are. The big one, about 13 million, is investing into our business improvement areas and really investing in streets to make them more walkable, more vibrant, to fill storefronts with art. Think of pop-up stores and galleries for artists. There's nothing worse that can kill a vibe in a street if you've got empty storefronts. So this is an incentive, and it's about, as I said, $13 million. Also want to experiment with an idea actually that we've taken from Melbourne in Australia about really creating vibrancy on little streets, which make pedestrians rule the road. Think of Stephen Avenue Mall, sort of after 6, cars can still park, but really pedestrians and life and patios and art and lighting. So want to ensure that we can invest and work with the BIAs to make those shifts and changes. Also part of that bucket, my not favorite thing at the moment are these temporary orange barriers. I would love to see more permanent as we kind of create vibrancy in our cities, and as we go through this summer, can we replace them with something just more pleasing to the eye and more interesting? So allocating some funds for that. So that's sort of the BIA Little Streets. One other cool thing about this program is lanes. Can we also start to repurpose lanes and make them a fun place to actually come and hang out? I think there was actually some things going on in Kensington where on a side lane, right, a bar or a pop-up bar was sort of opened up. And just again, how do we welcome people back to the outdoors? Reflects again as we sort of all get nervous going back out into the world as restrictions come off, but we want a reason to come together and have some fun, start to create the cool, put the cool back into Calgary. Another part of this bucket of Jan's Jumpstart for Jobs is about investing in arts and culture organizations. And again, these organizations have, for the most part, fallen through the cracks, perhaps have not qualified for federal, provincial subsidies going through COVID. And so we want to help them jumpstart their businesses and get back to levels pre-pandemic. So that's investing in arts collectives, it's investing in individual artists, one-time grants. Anyway, have a read on our website, jandamery.com. You'll see more about that. Tourism has been hugely hit through this pandemic. So we also want to provide some added incentives for tourist operators to help us all really start to rediscover our city. Let's make Calgary a tourist destination, and which also creates the vibrancy that goes on in our streets, that also attracts people. There's things to do. Again, piggybacking what we talked about last week about really talking about proof of concept for new restaurants, incentives to landlords to also make it easier for restaurants to actually start up. I want to do the same for actually all businesses. Another component of this bucket is job placement. So we want to invest almost $2.5 million with existing organizations in this community that actually help match people with employment opportunities. So really important as people try to get back on their feet, and how do we actually support? And I know this really well, given my work with YWCA, that we've got to actually help people get job experience, which actually really helps their employability. So want to invest in that as well. Festivals. We are coming up to the season of festivals. I know many festivals are even wondering whether they could actually get going. And so part of this post-COVID recovery is to make sure, particularly for the next, starting in the fall when this would become effective, can we start to really invest in our festivals? And this is about waiving fees for a year, and just making it easier for festivals to cover their costs for any sort of dollars. This is a $5 million investment that also can be applied to insurance costs. So it's again to just take away the barriers to get people back on their feet and back to pre-pandemic activities. The other component of this is outdoor recreation. We've had a lot of fitness instructors and small fitness boutique firms really suffer through this pandemic as they've had to pivot with things shutting down and not shutting down. So want to ensure too that they are getting a break. And right now, 'tis the season to be outdoors, fitness outdoors. So what can we do to really incentivize these players to actually welcome people back? So how do we wait? And talking about waiving the fees actually on parks. And that's an investment of about $5 million. So all in all, both including the announcement last week, in addition to these buckets, totals 37.7 for a now grand total of 50.7 million. I know there have been many questions, Dan, why are you spending money like this? So think of this as a redeployment of existing surpluses and resources, not raising more money, taxes to do this. This is about redeploying that also starts to jumpstart our pathway back to vibrancy and to help our local businesses get back on their feet, particularly those that have been hardest hit by COVID. So that's what the second announcement was about today. So look forward to your questions on that. Understand too that we've got a poll going on your favorite BIA, which is Business Improvement Area. And we often, right, these are kind of local, we've got wonderful Main Street activity going on, such as, the Kensingtons of the world, the East Village. But who's leading right now is East Village on this poll. So that's awesome. So keep voting. I want to hear what you think. So let's talk about some more updates. Our volunteer squad continues to grow. think we had close to 100 people when I checked actually our system earlier today, and more are starting to activate. As things start to open up, we look forward to having more outdoor events, more gathering, always socially distanced, wearing our very cool masks, but want to get out and start to talk to people. We're doing some literature drops and doing a lot of phone calls. One of the key things and strategies right now is certainly introducing my candidacy to the people of Calgary and really getting my name out there. But most importantly, and why we're making all of these announcements early on, is to demonstrate how serious we are about shifting the storyline about Calgary. One of the reasons that I am running for mayor is because I so believe in the future of this city and it being a magnet for people to realize their dreams and also raise their families. So that means affordability. It means protecting the services that we all rely on while always having our eye on cost and containing them. And it also means that we have safe and connected neighborhoods. I want to be a huge champion so that we leave no Calgarian behind. And so I believe I'm the leader to bring this forward. And very succinctly, I stand for economic prosperity. I stand for diversity and talent. I stand for smart financial choices. And I stand for healthy environments and healthy Calgarians. And so again, please spread the word. Want to encourage everyone, if you know me, and if you're starting to get to know me on these social media channels, is spread the word. Have a look at Jan, support the campaign, and you can do that by donating, signing up. This is about creating a movement in a village. Anything I do and have done in my career, I always love to build community. I'm a community builder at heart, and that's a movement that we're creating right now. So I think now we're sort of ready for questions. So let's have our first question. From Jenny, Instagram. Love Jumpstart for Jobs, she says. And can you discuss how this will benefit the arts community? Well, as we unveiled this week and just sort of quickly ran through for you, this is about giving one-time grants, investing almost $10 million into the arts and community area, really benefiting individual artists. So one-time grants to complete art projects around our city, and also to help them perhaps populate some of these pop-up stores that we're looking at. We also want to invest in arts collectives and support many of our community organizations. So again, one-time grants to get them back to pre-pandemic. I'm a huge believer in arts and culture. I mean, I've been a past chair of the board of Decidedly Jazz Dance Works. Big shout out for a locally grown, internationally renowned dance company. This is the vibrancy and the cool, and had a really cool conversation with some people today who've been quite involved. We're quite involved actually with the Amazon bid that we did, and some of the feedback that we actually got from Amazon, if you remember, a couple of years ago. Absolutely talent. We needed to actually improve our talent pipeline, but it was also we needed to improve the vibrancy of our city so people wanted to come and live. And that means actually redeveloping and re-energizing and reinvigorating downtown. In addition, I'm going to offer all the other kind of central areas that people can gather in their own neighborhoods. So that's why I so believe in culture and vibrancy. We've got to bring the cool back to Calgary and that interest and that fun. And so that's why we've actually coined Jan's Jumpstart for Jobs. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? So anyway, thanks for the question. Megan has a question about, have you moved into the campaign office? We have not, but I hear come June 1st, we are going to have access, and it's a fantastic location in another BIA, Kensington, just off the corner of Kensington Road and 14th Ave. And what is so exciting about this space is it has a huge outdoor deck where we can bring people together safely. Many of you who've built teams, it is so tough to do this in COVID. And for those of you also who know me, and those as you're going to get to know me, I'm a social gal and just love to be with people. So June 1st, we're going to start to look for the signage, and we hope to welcome people to visit. So thanks for that question, Megan. I am curious too how maybe the polls are going. So So I'm just getting a note back to my people. So how are the polls going, gang? We have another question. Lizzie. Paying attention to my new backdrop. I'm actually in the basement doing Facebook Live right now to get better bandwidth. And Lizzie wants to know what the story of the artwork behind me is. So I have had the great privilege and honor of traveling the world, and I spent a lot of time in East Africa. So that's Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. And this particular piece was procured in a street market. So love this notion, right, about vibrancy in communities, street markets, an amazing artist, as much of my art in my home. And it is about actually two women walking, actually one pregnant and walking sort of to market. It's sort of abstract, but if you can kind of look at it, and it takes me back to that market that I used to go all the time, actually in Dar es Salaam, so which is on the coast of Tanzania. Beautiful place. Look forward to one day again when I can travel. But I learned so much about what it means to be in such a cosmopolitan place, different cultures, and that's that's a bit of my vision too for Calgary, is this vibrant cosmopolitan place that we welcome all people from the world, and we're here creating just a future that we all aspire to, and we succeed together through economic prosperity, and we create great opportunities for our kids. So that's the vision. And so maybe think about that when you see this painting. I'm going to check in with the poll because we have a favorite public art in Calgary was the question. And the answer right now is one of the 17 murals along Beltline. And I was actually standing in front of one yesterday, just off 16th Ave, which was amazing. So if you've caught any of my photos on Instagram. And speaking of Instagram, we have Ben. And his question is, what is your stance on creating more bike infrastructure to make cycling more accessible? I think we want to have all different ways of moving around the city, and really important to get us physically moving in the city. So I'm actually pro cycling. It also means we've got to think about snow clearing in the winter. Lessons learned from cities in Scandinavia is that we think that people don't want to use bike lanes in the winter because it's too cold. Not true. Actually, cold typically doesn't. It's about making actually bike lanes really accessible, usable, that we respect, that they're safe, that there is light, and that it's also easy to park your bike wherever you're going. So I'm very much pro more biking, more walking, very much in love with this concept of a 15-minute city, which we're starting to see sort of concepts of that kind of weave through some of the planning that the city's rolling out for revitalizing certainly downtown and our city, but we really want to take it up a next notch. And it's also about finding ways that cars, people, pedestrians, bikes can all kind of cohabit, and that we have an option in the 15-minute city that we can bike and walk anywhere to anything that we need. So loving that idea, because it also means that we're healthy, be healthy Calgarians, get moving. Janelle, thanks for your question. Her question is, Jan, will the process of applying for these grants be simple and streamlined? How quickly will funding be received by applicants? That is such a great question. And this is too where I put on my former hat as a VP of fundraising at YWCA and also in United Way, where we always had to actually write these incredibly complicated grants. Such a waste of time for organizations. This is going to be hugely simple and streamlined. We're interested in outcomes, not so much the inputs or the processes. And a part of these grants too are to really kickstart and get rid of the red tape. So we're going to be very clear on the outcomes that we're looking for. And then we're going to be very clear on how the process of allocating upfront and making sure that it's easy for people to apply. And again, I've been in those shoes applying for many grants. So that's my commitment. Do we have another question? Or maybe I should tell you a story about what is going on with Padre this week. If any of you actually follow my local neighborhood Facebook page, you may have actually seen that Padre actually got out of the backyard this week and went for a roam amongst the neighborhood. Paul and I realized that he was out probably about 15 minutes. And for those of you who don't know, Paul's my husband. And so off we go, I on foot, Paul initially on car. He'd already had a big walk during the day. You know, he's a guy of 8, chocolate lab, 100-pound chocolate lab. So he doesn't move that fast these days, but man, he's governed by his nose. Anyway, half hour, 40 minutes later, still no sign of Padre. And we're kind of weaving now through all the streets. I'm starting to get a little antsy and thinking that he's streetwise. And of course, if you're a dog mom, you kind of wonder, do they know actually how to get back? We're trying to retrace steps of walks. Anyway, long story short, I came around a street and there was Padre laying down on the sidewalk by 2 wonderful men who, and the fellow, actually Steve, had actually found him. I pull up, I said, oh my God, it's Padre. Steve actually goes on to tell me that he was just wandering, walked into his backyard, actually through the garage, helped himself to a steak. I'm mortified, thinking, oh my God, this dog has eaten this man's dinner. He was so great about this, so lighthearted. I was still so flustered that I forgot even to get his contact information. But Padre was safe, got Padre home, the rascal. And then, of course, found that Steve's wife had also put up on Facebook, right, that they had found this amazing chocolate lab, that they had him, you know, and if the owner could come get him. So how amazing, right? Talk about a connected neighborhood. And also now feeling safe knowing that your dog can actually wander and be found and be taken care of. And in this case, enjoy a steak dinner. So anyway, that's the news of Padre this week. So your little Padre interlude. How about we go back to questions? We have one from Deb. I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. Is it Scaffer or Schaefer? Deb's question is, how do you plan to address and approve the city's arts installation selection program that we see around the city after major road development? I'm actually really curious, Deb, and kind of some additional thoughts that you've got on that. I mean, I think I'm pro art, and I know that public art is incredibly controversial in terms of both the money that we spend on it, and of course the trouble with art, it's always in the eye of the beholder. I'm more interested in getting out of sort of the business of selecting, and perhaps there are different ways that we can do that, but getting rid of the red tape that gets in the way of us actually having local artists and others sort of invest in our city in creating beautiful streetscapes. So I'd also be interested in others' ideas in terms of, it sounds like maybe you have been involved in that process. So why don't you send me and the team some ideas of how you think you can improve it? I'd love to learn more. Thanks for that question. Enrique, you have a volunteer that signed up in the last couple of weeks. Great to see you on Facebook Live here. And your question, would you have strategic job creation opportunities for racialized minorities? Absolutely. So much of my vision for this city, Enrique, is ensuring that we leave no Calgarian behind. And we've got to really come to terms with the multiple barriers that many of us perhaps don't even see that get in the way of racialized minorities participating fully in our workforce. That includes, now the city has very few levers in terms of how it can sort of recognize certain credentials in certain fields, but I'm all for busting down those barriers and making it easier and giving people opportunities. At the YWCA, there were some great employment programs for both men and women, particularly for new Canadians coming to the city, and how we both get job experience. And you know, as a dear friend of mine who used to work alongside me when she moved from Nigeria said, it was also learning how to do business and to be in business in a new culture, and how do we help people get settled. So a couple of the job placement programmings and investments in sort of businesses, some of the tourism businesses, is also wanting to make sure that we're giving those that really face more than their fair share. And I just to emphasize that, of barriers getting in the way of employment. Can we redirect some of that funding that way? I've got my eye on it because I want to make sure, again, that no Calgarian is left behind. And we want to create this vibrant and rich where we're all connected and supporting each other. So I hope that gives you a sense. Great question. Thank you for that. I'm wondering too, as you're watching this Facebook Live, please keep liking and sharing this video. This also helps me in my campaign goal right now to get recognized and get my name recognized out there as a serious contender. So keep doing that. Really appreciate that. We have another question from Nathan. And Nathan says, my favorite art installations are probably the Indigenous dancer in the city's center parkade or the Wonderland sculpture. What's your favorite public art in Calgary? This is going to be, so this is a great question, Nathan. I love the famous 5 statues, actually just outside Olympic Plaza. And so meaningful for me. It's interesting, election day this year is October 18th, which happens to be Persons Year. So the anniversary when women actually got the coat, were recognized as persons and could vote in this country. And so it's hugely meaningful to me. And I love, and I've actually got a favorite photo of one of my youngest nieces standing amongst these statues. So yeah, that's one of my, I love the way it's positioned, just recognizing those fierce women and what they have done just to support gender equality through the ages. So great question. Thanks. Got a great question from Joel. Hello, Joel. What's the place that inspires you most in Calgary? I am a river girl. And so I love when our rivers come together, actually in East Village, the Bow and the Elbow. And I have a favorite spot too, just west, I think it's by Riffus Woods, a Discovery Ridge, where you can actually feel like you're truly meandering along the river. I've actually gotten lost down there, so this knows it being really close. But there's a reason, right, that Calgary was kind of born on these great lands, right? Just honoring, right, our Indigenous forebears and the people that have settled this land for thousands of years, and how special these rivers are, and the flow of these rivers, and just the beautiful color. So it's actually, as you'll see, one of my campaign colors is aquamarine, which actually is a tribute to the rivers. So great question. Thanks so much. Why don't we check in on one of the polls? So poll activity here. What activity do you most enjoy when visiting a main street? And the answer is all of the above. And isn't that sort of the heart of vibrancy? People love to leisurely stroll. They like to pop into shops. They like to stop and have a bite to eat, sit on a patio, perhaps have a beverage, a cocktail, maybe your favorite wine. And this is what we need to do more of. We need to have more of these main streets all over the city, where people can gather and leisurely stroll and enjoy each other, enjoy our city. That's the vibrancy we're talking about. So love that answer. All of the above. We've got another question from Tom. What's your view on polarized positions on the current city council? I am very much against polarized positions. I think they're unproductive. And it's one of the reasons, Tom, that I'm throwing my hat in the ring to run for mayor, because we've actually got to stop it. It's getting in the way of progress. We have so many challenges and so many complexities that we are facing in this city. And to have a city council that is constantly at each other and fighting each other, it just is not productive work, and it does not serve the people. And so what we need is leadership who can build coalitions, who can collaborate, who can actually hear the other points of view. And I've had to be that kind of leader all of my career through all of the sectors that I've worked in. And I've worked in all of the sectors. I've worked in advanced education. I've worked in government. I've worked in corporate. I've been a consultant. I've had my own consulting firm. I've been a coach, a facilitator, and I've worked both locally and internationally for not-for-profits, and have had to build coalition and lead with influence all my career. This is the kind of leadership we need now. Having coming off a new election with actually a brand new council, we'll have a big turnover in council, is the ideal time to reset on building team, building collective vision. We will have just heard from all of you, the people of Calgary, what's important. And I believe that's one of the chief roles of the mayor, is actually to build that coalition. And so I'm taking that seriously. And again, it's one of the reasons that I'm jumping in and putting my hat into this arena. Vital. We've got a couple last questions just as we wrap up. And I think I made this comment last time, right? It gets a little jittery as I start, but then I kind of get into the groove here. And man, does the time go fast. So I hope you're enjoying this. Let me know with your likes and sort of comments. But Miriam has a question. How can we spur greater development of Calgary's core? And this is a huge issue. Many organizations are talking about this within our city. We need great collaboration. There are plans in terms of revitalization that Calgary Economic Development has been launching. There are great plans, great ideas. We have to actually catalyze and get moving on this. And I'm all about action, and it's about doing. I'm a can-do girl, and we have to make downtown core a neighborhood. We have to have people living downtown. That's the only way you move it from a 7 to 4, Monday to Friday, downtown place, to a 24/7 vibrant place that attracts people and has businesses that are vibrant. Ironically, when we invested in our beloved Plus 15 system, we killed main streets downtown. In fact, the only walkable street really is Stephen Avenue Mall. We've got to make a lot of the streets down there like that. And that will only come about by having magnets and centers that attract people at both business. How do we refill some of those businesses? How do we refurbish some of those businesses? How do we repurpose? Probably taking some of those buildings down. The city has announced this week plans to actually incentivize, because it's going to take us getting developers over a hurdle, but we're also going to have to take away a bunch of the barriers that allows developers and other organizations to repurpose existing buildings. We also know we have to get more light downtown. We have to get rid of the wind tunnels because it's not very pleasant to be. And again, as we started today, really important when we heard, right, one of the reasons and big challenges not attracting big employers, some of the tech firms, particularly went through the Amazon bid, is we've got to have a vibrant downtown core. And I am committed 200% to creating the environment for that to happen. Great question. So let's talk about the last question of the day. And this is from Helena from Instagram. What's your go-to takeout place? Our go-to takeout place, both Paul's and mine, is going to be the Garrison Pub. It's in our local. One of the second ones would be Annabelle's Kitchen, which is also in the hood that I live in. And we also like Merchants. So those would be sort of the top 3. Also, there's a great new sandwich place that's, and whose name just escapes me, and someone can actually ping me on Instagram and whose that great sandwich place is. Really good. But those are sort of, I've come to realize how important it is to support local economy. It's another reason I'm running for mayor. Local matters to our quality of life. It impacts all of us. Safe communities, vibrant communities, which also means supporting local business. So how about we end there? Other than to say, I'm really grateful for this time. Thank you so much for joining us and checking in on the campaign. Again, we're going to do this weekly. Want your feedback. Tell me how I can do better. What more do you want to hear about me? Do you like hearing some of the inside scoop on what's going on in my world? Please contact the team at info@jandamery.com. And please follow all of our social channels to stay updated. Tweet the heck out of them. Again, we're building a community. Want to reach as many people as we can. And can't wait till I can be also outdoors, that we can also gather and kind of meet more in person, socially distanced, of course. But thank you again for joining me this evening. And I'm going to say, call it a wrap. So thank you all and have a great rest of week and enjoy the sunshine.